Now, we're talking about a Nobel Prize winner in the field of psychiatry. Um, it doesn't mean he has schizoid-like tendencies and is in left field. Unlikely, but you can't rule these things out. But when he speaks, without knowing much more about him, I listen. When Alan Hynek speaks, I can't help but listen. More so than I would X, Y, and Z. Talking about, I saw green person in the woods when I was camping with my buddies one night. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But here again, we're focusing too much on the minutiae. We know a great deal from analysis of past events. We need to know more about its effect on consciousness and effects on people's lives, how they interpret their experience, what it meant to them, rather than trying to pick up gamma rays in a circle made by a so-called UFO that blinded. Again, nothing tangible, nothing irrefutable out there. So I think we need to focus in the future, at least, and we are currently, but more so again in the future, under the proper governance, fiscal and human resources available for, as I mentioned earlier, a team of researchers to study the phenomenon.
Well, let me share with you and certainly the audience is early on when I started out the show back in, I think it was started in 2003. I had a gentleman on, and I have slept since then. I cannot remember his name, and I had him on the show quite frequently. And he was a UFO researcher. He was also a contactee, and he was also a contact person for those who had had extraterrestrial, whether you want to call them abductions or whether they were just contactees or just experiencers. They were all levels of people that he worked with. And him and I, in those days, we shared a lot of information and, tried to really assist people in somebody needs to get an organization together, a safe place, if you will, for people who are experiencers or contactees or abductees, because generally speaking, and if you look through the stories, and you know what the stories are, you've researched them, what happens to these people when they come back and tell the story? I mean, they have been ostracized, demonized, institutionalized, for all the wrong reasons, because, they say, oh, they're delusional, it was a, hypnotic trance suggestion or something, whatever I mean, I've heard it all as to what has happened, and some of these people have come back with severe trauma. I mean, trauma from their ordeal. Much like if you ever watched the Betty and Barney Hill interviews, and when she was being regressed, and how frightened she was, that trauma that she was experiencing, these people are still experiencing it, not within the hypnosis state, but in their everyday life. They just, they're freaked out, and they do say it runs in the family. And then her daughter began to, become abducted, and then her daughter. So at this point, this woman was I remember this woman specifically, her story was just sad. She just got totally debilitated. She got debilitated not just because of the memories and the experience and the trauma, but there was some things physically also left in her body, and they couldn't get anybody to assist her. Nobody would assist her. And this woman went from a very vibrant, beautiful woman to a lady that she just couldn't operate in this world anymore. That's how traumatic it ended up becoming for her through the years. So there does need to be some place where a central location, like a hotline, if you will, or whatever, whatever would work in this situation, where people can contact and share their experiences, and maybe be given the names of other people that be willing to talk with them that's had the same experiences. And, even do online group meetings, because not everybody lives in the same place, obviously. Pardon me. And, just do some things that are helpful, and give some information, and let people know that, hey, you're not the only ones doing this or having this experience. and a lot of the contactees, they don't have the negative traumatic, right? Theirs is more of a consciousness expansion, but they also need to have people that they can share this with, because there are people in there, usually in their home circle, don't understand, you know, why all of a sudden they feel so connected to every flower and blade of grass, and, you know, all of a sudden they want to go hug trees, you know, that kind of a thing. They don't understand. And so we really do need to put that human aspect back into this. And I love what you're talking about with all this research that you've done, and realize that this really is about the human experience. And there's still a lot of unanswered questions in all this. Although I will tell you is that I sing the kudos to those that do the hard research, that try to prove that the UFO ships that they're seeing are real, and that they have these weird energy signatures that come with them, because that's also backs up the proof, you know, backs up the experience of the contactee or the abductee, whatever the case may be, that these are for real, and these aren't just our own, you know, ships that our military is making and, you know, putting out in the skies, that these really do belong to something that doesn't live here on this planet. So.
Well, it's very well said on many levels. I think that's very insightful on your part. We should certainly move forward dealing more with the humane aspect of it. Support lines, according to what you're suggesting, critical, as well as research on a one-to-one basis, as I mentioned previously. It's necessary, yes, to understand that there is a physical craft right where the person was who claims to have been taken on board. It's nice to get that confirmation, indeed. But nevertheless, too many people are suffering needlessly for shame, ridicule, fear of ridicule. And if they do go to the doctor's going to put them on some antipsychotic / mood stabilizer drug, which really doesn't, again, get at the heart of the matter. And they do have PTSD, among other things. But in contrast to that, and you acknowledge this too, many people have a wonderful experience. Does it vary by entity? I don't know. Does it vary for whatever reason? Who knows? We can only speculate now. But there is a diverse range of experiences, various types. But this paranormal event seems to possibly tie in with other types of strange phenomenon that coexist at the present time, and which seem to defy logical explanation, like near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, reincarnation studies, global consciousness projects. Everybody's going to be critical of it and accepting of it, etc. But here again, we don't have that smoking, irrefutable evidence one way or the other. What is true? But some aspects of both sides may be true. And maybe there is a common ground. I don't know. But as well as continuity of consciousness and quantum physics, certainly, and we're aware of that too, which ties into consciousness, which ties into possibly how consciousness could be altered, or the form of nonverbal communication that is reported to occur by people who encounter ETs. So there is a great myriad of symptoms, effects, things we can study to try to better understand the who, what, and why is associated with the phenomenon. And your keen insights are very valuable in that respect. Someone should listen to it very seriously. But unfortunately, we don't have the scientific community on board. We don't have the politicians on board to really make things happen, to facilitate this process, I think, in the right direction as soon as possible. At least to either fully accept this phenomenon as something extraordinarily profound that will have a major impact on the individual and society if once revealed is true, that there is another civilization. So some theoretical physicists like Stephen Hawking and Kaku, among many others, contend there's a multiverse or alternate reality where beings coexist with ours and can access ours much more easily maybe than we can there. Some of us have that ability. Wish I did. But what's going on here? So we're starting to see some acceptance by some leading scientists. We even talk about the law of entanglement and the separation of the subatomic particles like a photon. And you separate it in half, you put one out theoretically millions of miles away, and you manipulate one and the other spins in the opposite predictable manner. Why? There's nothing connecting it, at least nothing visible connecting it. So the point is non-locality. In different space and time, things can still communicate, interact in some way. What does that mean? It's somewhat debatable, but nevertheless, I'm trying to put the dots together. I'm not unique in that respect. Does it tie into UFOs? Maybe. Does it, quantum physics theory, as it stands now, does it tie into other paranormal aspects of this multidimensional, purportedly, reality that we live in? And how do we access it, if at all possible, if we could handle it? So it gets really into other realms. And this is, you know better than anybody. You're an expert in this area. Look who I'm talking to. I'm really talking to your listeners. I think I know where you're coming from, and I'm greatly impressed by all you have done with all individuals. And I'm not denouncing, by the way, getting back to your early statement, hypnotic regression. There's a very important time and place for hypnotic regression, no question about it. It's just not admissible, as you know, in the court of law. Scientific community doesn't fully buy into it unless it's conscious recall. Yeah, so for that, science and me, among others, you like to kind of not exclude regression hypnosis. Compare that to conscious recall, see if the differences are different. So it's complicated. There's no easy answers. Let's talk about Roswell. No, not in the mood. Let's talk maybe about more, I think, critical events, like the activation, deactivation of nuclear warheads on missile bases here in the United States and in Russia. That Robert Salas, a guest who you'll be having on very soon. I can't remember the date we were going to have him on.
I think the 21st of October.
Yeah, he's going to be an excellent guest. He could talk a great deal about that interconnection, among other things, in ufology. But again, these nuclear warheads are kind of digressing somewhat, but as it comes to mind, nuclear warheads became activated and then deactivated after 30 seconds or so thereafter. Beforehand, UFOs were seen at the base, and it was seen to fly off at tremendous hairpin, supersonic, up to 10,000 miles per hour, so to speak, turns after the missiles became deactivated again. So what's the message? Robert Hastings may say, ufologists may say, you guys are getting too big, too bad, too soon, right? Or leave us alone, leave space weapon-free, something to that effect. What can we speculate? But that got my attention, more so than most other things that we read about in the literature. Redemption Forest is interesting as well, among others we can possibly talk about. But you're right. I think we need to be more prospective, less retrospective, and hopefully someday we'll move forward in that direction. Not that there will be a definitive answer, but at least this is what I think should be done to at least complement what already has been done.
Well, the big question obviously has always been, are we alone? And I think most everybody that if you would poll most everybody, they would say, no, I don't think so. I mean, I remember as a kid looking up at the sky and thinking, oh my gosh, look at all them stars. There's got to be planets out there. I mean, there's, hundreds of thousands just where my eyes could view, right? And I'm thinking, man, there's a whole bunch more on the other side of the world. The globe, it just became really expansive. And I was like, there's just no way we're alone. It's just too big. And then, of course, as you get older, you learn to read the news, and then, of course, the internet comes along, and then, boy, everything changes, right? And information becomes accessible, and you're able to reach out to people, and it just is a fabulous thing. As much as it can be a negative experience, it's also a very positive thing to have this internet, because it's how we're all sitting here having this conversation with each other. So, not to be knocked, that's for sure. But that being said, the idea that as we're exploring like the different, I guess, arenas of the whole UFO phenomenon, should I believe, is, and you've said it a few times here tonight, but it's your, a lot of it was your own perspective, and it was your own objective viewpoint, what you figured was an objective viewpoint, and I have to agree. I think your viewpoint is objective, and I think anybody that's going to be watching the show or is watching the show and listening to it is certainly going to come away and garner some new ways of looking at this whole phenomenon as far as just the nuts and bolts. I mean, that's what's happened to you. I mean, that's my personal opinion. I really think that this whole experience and everything that you have went through is triggered, is clicked on, and I think that is really a big, huge point. But that being said, I know we're not alone. I mean, I truly know that. I mean, I know that. and for me, I already have my proof. I have my proof that I'm not alone, and that there are other entities that coexist with us on some level, whether it's in another parallel dimension, or whether it's another universe, or whether they're energetically standing right here next to me. I absolutely know that they are here. And I think that people are going to begin to recognize, with the way that you have presented this material this evening, that there is a different way of looking at this UFO phenomenon, and that is from the human perspective, and not just from data and analysis and, you know, here's, do we have gamma rays or radiation, etc., and so forth. But again, those are very important. They can back up the evidence or back up the information of whatever the person is sharing. So it all kind of coexists, and so you give kudos for the people that are doing the work that's their mission to do. And that is their mission to do, in my opinion. And better them than me, because that would bore me to death. I just couldn't handle it. I'm not a nuts and bolts kind of gal that way. Anyway, I would love for you, because you put out a couple names there. Have you personally worked with Dr. Edgar Mitchell? He was a guest on my show. I loved him.
No, I haven't worked directly with them. Indirectly, yes. And he asked me to give some presentations next year at conferences, based, of course, on the results that we were obtaining for free. And articles that he has written about ETs in general, consciousness, etc., can be found on experiencer.co, along with many other very interesting articles by others. John Klimo, Mary Rodwell, Barbara Mango, etc., and Eva Shield. We're not talking just about non-researchers or scientists. You don't have to be scientists or researchers to get involved in this topic, of course. Everybody from all walks of life have either experienced the phenomenon at some level or have done research. But it's good to get a scientific hand in it, as well as a non-scientific hand in it. It's an art and a science. It's psychology, sociology, it's conscious recall in various ways. It's a whole mess of things. It's a human being that's being involved here. So it's beyond complicated in terms of how to analyze it, let alone trying to analyze and understand the most marvelous physiological organ, the brain, of course. But maybe it's being modified to some extent through this experience. Hard to say, but there are people, as you mentioned, who do suffer, unfortunately, understandably, given their extraordinarily horrific experience. And I'm not entirely sure what the percentage is in terms of positive or negative. On the preliminary data I've seen thus far, it seems to be more of a positive experience. But that's not certainly always the case. And here again, maybe species related, not entirely sure. Connecting the dots, that's a challenge. No one can perfectly. The dots are scattered all over the place, not just with ufology, I don't think. And there are enough good reason to be skeptical about this phenomenon, including all phenomena. And it's wonderful that you know for sure that you're not alone, so to speak. There's entities with you. You benefit greatly by that. You've had your unique experiences that I'm, in fact, addressing in general ways. I wish I too could be where you are, and I don't know why everybody isn't. Many are, and many don't want to talk about it, let alone talk about an observation of some strange aerial event that defies logical explanation. Oh, it fell down from 12 o'clock to 6 in a second. It must have been traveling 8,000 miles per hour, so says, so confirmed by radar, which a pilot visualizes simultaneously and appears on each and every wing. The passengers see it. They take evasive maneuvers. Obviously, it's no good. You know, you can go on and on. There's classic cases. I shot a weapon on it. It was absorbed. It split into different pieces, different colors, lights, the whole bit. Then it flies off at 12,000 miles per hour. It wasn't just me, it was the co-pilot, passenger, whatever. Radar, another plane saw it. Well, what does that mean? I don't know. I'll tell you what it does. It means more to me than Roswell, more to me than flights. Now, there could be something quite substantial to those incidents, so I'm not dismissing it completely. But still, the nuclear missiles, individual unique pilot sightings, astronaut experiences, there are many on the circuit, like Scott Musgrave, Baker Mitchell, of course, who I mentioned, even Gordon Cooper, an astronaut in the Gemini Mercury missions. He went on the record through the Disclosure Project, and for those in the audience who are not familiar with that, the Disclosure Project, you can simply put into YouTube and hear actual accounts, as I'm sure you have, of people's unique experiences with this phenomenon. And Gordon Cooper's on there, as well as many other pilots included, of course, who, in Cooper's case, he contends that he was with some individuals filming a landing of a special type of Air Force vehicle. Beforehand, a UFO, I'm not sure the shape, it was circular, lands, beings come out, beings go back in, and it takes off. So, I don't know. It's Gordon Cooper. If it was somebody else, maybe I would not take it so literally or seriously. But it's Gordon Cooper. He's a trained observer. Why would he lie? Maybe there's reason for it. I don't know. That event, along with the other few, is meaningful to me. Mack, Hynek, Cooper, Edgar Mitchell, a few classic radar visual confirmation by pilots in their extraordinary reports. Some conspiracy. John Callahan, FAA investigator, I forget his actual title, but he talked about a very unique airline encounter in Japan back in the mid-'80s to Ronald Reagan, President Reagan's special research group. At present was a member or two of the CIA and the FBI. And following his discussion of this, whereby the pilots, passengers saw, I can't remember if it was more than one, but definitely one, of course, UFO that paralleled their plane, was witnessed by many, looked beyond foreign apparently. He was told by someone from the CIA, you never hear, you know the line, you would never hear, you never said that, this never happened. These kinds of things do occur. Does the government know it, or a branch or two of the government know it? Of course it does. The military, a branch or two of the military? Of course it does. If I was in their position, if I was calling the shots, you think I would leak out to the public that, yeah, we know about the phenomenon. There is non-human intelligence here. They're abducting human beings. We do have their UFO somewhere. Yeah, we had it since the 50s, 60s, 70s. We didn't decide not to tell you people. But now we're letting you know. I'll put the kibosh on that, wouldn't you? I would say, no, don't tell anybody. Can you imagine the questions, CNN, you name it.
Well, I have to address this. I really do. I have to address this because I've had this conversation before on air and again, I get on my soapboxes. This happens to be one of them. And it really is about, well, if they hadn't kept it a secret to begin with, if they hadn't done something nefarious to keep it from the public to begin with, this whole conversation that we're having wouldn't be taking place. And people wouldn't be having the trauma that they're having, and they wouldn't be doing what they're doing. But instead, they made some kind of a deal with some extraterrestrials saying, oh, yeah, you can take our peeps and, you know, experiment on them. Hello, what's wrong with that picture? Everything, right? So, you know, they've got a lot to atone for. You know, I hate to see their karma. I'm just going to say that right now, right? All that being said, you know, it really is, when I sat here and I was listening to it, and I thought, okay, so here's what we have. We have the physical part of the UFO phenomenon. We have the ships and the little beings coming out and turning around and going back in, and the lights and, you know, the activity, et cetera, and so forth. We've got them shutting down nuclear power plants and, you know, turning them off, turning them on. You know, crop circles, I think, may be done by some kind of an extraterrestrial intelligence, which I agree probably is. Although I don't know that for sure. I've never visited a crop circle, so if I ever could, then I'd probably pick up some more information. But that being said, we're also talking about physical evidence of, you know, we were talking about gamma rays, radiation, whatever, you know, that people get when they land. Okay. Then we have the other side of it, which is the contactees, the abductees, and the experiencers. These are, we're talking about the same arena. We're talking about UFOs, extraterrestrials. We're talking about them from a whole different perspective. One, where they're just kind of up in the sky, and sometimes they land, sometimes they come in and out of, you know, mountains or underneath, you know, the oceans, whatever, you know, underground bases or whatever they've got. Then we've got the other side of it, which is the ones that are being, you know, are in contact with them. And so I can tell you for, and this might be something that you might want to think about, is that when these people are being contacted or they're experiencing, and even, I guess, even the ones that are abducted, are they paying attention to what kind of a ship they're in? What, you know, do they know? I mean, can they expand themselves to go, okay, what kind of a ship am I in? Am I in a cigar-shaped ship? Am I in a round ship? Am I in a disc? Did they, you know, did a light come up, or am I just in a consciousness state? Because I think that's the difference. I think there's a line here where the ones that are abducted may be being abducted by the ones that we're physically looking at, that they have the, you know, the evidence of, right? And I think the experiencers and the contactees may not be as often as these physical ships that are flying around. I think there's different agendas, see, for the extraterrestrial community, and, you know, they're just as wide and varied, if not more so diverse, than the human beings are, in their factions, their loyalties, their motives, their operations, etc., and so forth. So I think there's, again, this rabbit hole is huge, and it goes very, very deep. And I said a lot of different things, and so now I'm going to kind of turn this back to you. Where would you like to go from here with this? There's a lot of different directions that you could take this, so I'm going to let you decide. This is kind of your ship to steer, as it were.
Well, you know, we've covered a lot of ground already. That doesn't mean we can't cover more, certainly. But we can see how it goes. When you think about it, though, there are something on the order of, I forget the number now, 66 trillion, something to that effect, galaxies. It's mind-boggling, the number, certainly, of planets, let alone so-called exoplanets, that have been identified. And obviously there's life elsewhere, and certainly much more advanced life.